Koozie Peace Corps Volunteer Protection Act of 2011. This bill represents the culmination of bipartisan and bicameral efforts to remedy long-standing problems in the Peace Corps regarding the way that rapes, sexual assault, and other violent crimes committed against Peace Corps volunteers serving overseas are handled. Senate Bill 1280 incorporates structural reforms in the Peace Corps that I had proposed in my bill, H.R. 2699. These are based on recommendations made by the Peace Corps Inspector General. It also incorporates the essential provisions of Representative Poe's H.R. 2337 to bring best practices to the Peace Corps' response to victims of sexual assault. Both of these bills, Mr. Speaker, were adopted by our House Foreign Affairs Committee by unanimous consent. Senate Bill 1280 is named in honor of a brave Peace Corps volunteer from the state of Georgia who lost her life while serving in Africa. Kate Koozie was brutally murdered in Benin when she tried to end the continuing rape of her students by reporting the assailant. Earlier this year, in an oversight hearing held by our Committee on Foreign Affairs, we heard from Kate's mom, Lois Koozie, who testified that the Peace Corps failed to protect the confidentiality of her daughter Kate's report, and this ultimately led to the murder of her daughter. We also heard testimony from 3 former Peace Corps volunteers who were raped overseas. They all relate accounts about the deplorable treatment they received by the Peace Corps after they reported their rapes. Without the chilling testimony of these brave individuals who came forward, I do not believe that successful reform legislation like this would have been possible, Mr. Speaker. They deserve the utmost respect. They're to be commended for their bravery. Many of them are in the visitors gallery today. Jess, Carol, Karistan, and Kate, they are the voices of the Peace Corps' own volunteers from across the decades that can no longer be ignored. During the course of our investigation, Mr. Speaker, the House Foreign Affairs Committee received dozens of affidavits from other victims in the Peace Corps echoing their plea for change. The accounts of these victims unveiled an institution that had too often blamed the victim and treated reports of rape as a threat to its reputation. During their harrowing experiences, most volunteers who have been victims of sexual assault continue to support the Peace Corps and remain committed to its noble mission to promote world peace and friendship between peoples from different cultures. Director Aaron Williams has begun to make important changes to better protect and serve volunteers in the Peace Corps. However, deeper reforms are needed, and that is what the legislation before us today, and that was adopted by our Foreign Affairs Committee, requires the Peace Corps to make these changes. Senate Bill 1280 combines 2 of our House bills, and it requires the Peace Corps to establish a confidentiality policy for reporting sexual assault. The bill also sets up an Office of Victims Advocacy to oversee the response to sexual assault and other violent crimes. It also establishes a Sexual Assault Advisory Council to provide guidance to the Peace Corps volunteers and ensure that it continues to follow the best practices as they evolve in the field. Under this bill, Mr. Speaker, the Peace Corps must keep crime statistics and track them in annual safety and security reports. It directs the Peace Corps to perform portfolio reviews to evaluate the countries where volunteers serve, including an evaluation of their safety and their security. This bill enhances the independence of the Peace Corps Inspector General by exempting that office from the 5-year limitation of Peace Corps tenure. It instructs that a memorandum of understanding be entered into between the Department of State and the Peace Corps delineating responsibility for crime victim support. I urge all members to support this important legislation in honor of Kate Koozie and vote in favor of Senate Bill 1280. help reform the Peace Corps to make it the polished gem of U.S. diplomacy that it was always meant to be. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of our time.